Today we're talking about goals, guidelines, and guardrails, which really is about how to give your job away well. And for me, learning how to give your job away all boils down to how do you communicate with clarity?
Well, I think the biggest misconception we have, I know I have, is I thought I communicated clearly. and just because I felt like I said it and emailed it and had a staff meeting and had a PowerPoint presentation, I'm wondering, why is not everybody getting it? Have you ever had that, Michelle?
Yes. And the best way I found to delegate well and communicate well is just my own little thing. I use goals, guidelines, and guardrails. And we talk about it in the book of how to communicate clearly with those goals, guidelines, and guardrails clearly stated.
That's so good. You and I serve together here at Christ Fellowship Stewart Campus. We're right here right now, and even got a friend with us helping us with video. And I loved watching your leadership because you not only love people and you not only worked hard, the people flourished under you. And there were some high capacity. We had an attorney, we had real estate people, we had business owners, and those people don't take orders well, right? They're too busy for it. But they loved following you, and I'm like, why? Why do they respond so? And both men and women, young and old, flourished. And so now I know why. This goals, guidelines, guardrails. Explain what that means. How did you lead them with that?
I think it was, well, first of all, thank you. Such very kind compliments. But it wasn't natural at first. I think communication is a skill set that has to be experienced. And so I didn't start off communicating very well. I maybe would say the goal as to the why, but I wouldn't follow up with the how. So it took me a while to realize my own communication style and how to be efficient and use an economy of words so that I can explain myself and bring others along. Michael Hyatt says that communication is connection.
Yes.
I love that because I firmly believe it. And for me, when I communicated the goal, which the goal is like just painting the picture of what it looks like at the finish line. And then when I explained the guidelines, so the guidelines are those bullet points of how to reach the goal. And they don't micromanage, they're just loose enough to guide. And then there's the guardrails, which are my favorite. The guardrails are these checkpoints that build trust and respect. And once I had all three in play, I was able to make a connection with my communication.
That's so good. And I love that you use the word micromanage. Many of us hate to be micromanaged. And when you hear about goals and guardrails and guidelines, Michelle, you know me pretty well, you and your husband, I'm independent. I'm entrepreneurial. Leave me alone. Don't tell me how to do it. So I like the goal part, but the guidelines feel constraining. But you just said that you talked about, use the word loose guardrails. Talk about that a little bit. There
is a difference. I'm going to go back to this because there's a difference between giving away a job and giving away a task.
Ooh, yeah. Explain that.
So if you give away a task, it's just a one-time thing. It's a one-off. Like you can give away a task for my kids. I can give away the task of taking out the garbage, and I have to repeat those instructions every week. But when I give away the job of taking out the garbage, then I don't have to check up because the expectation is that week after week, my child is going to have the responsibility of taking out the trash. And I think the same thing is true in ministry. So many times we give away a task and then people are standing around saying, okay, now what? Whereas when you give away a job and it includes goals, guidelines, and guardrails, and it's an actual job description, they know that this is an ongoing thing that they can be responsible for.
That's good. And I'm what you're talking about is kind of disrupting my thinking. I know many times when I've been given a job to do, what comes is stress because what I sense is responsibility. The reason why I think we struggle to get high capacity leaders, volunteers, or staff to really own the job isn't that they're lazy or they don't want to be part of it. I think the opposite's true. They want to be part. People want to win, but they don't know how. And so talk about why are they so afraid of responsibility? Because you talk about being responsible for the garbage every week versus I'll just do it because you told me. I think that's an area that we as leaders are like, I can get people to show up and do traffic team and do data entry and do prayer, but will it happen without me here?
That is a really good question. And I think it's actually something you write about in the book, because you write about the fear of giving your job away.
I have nightmares about giving work away. I'll tell you a quick story. You and I, we went through COVID here at the church 2020, and we all got COVID on staff, all of us, and all I had left was a couple of interns, young, I can't trust them, and a part-time children's worker, and a lot of volunteers. And so the senior pastors of our church, they came to fill in. I'm like, oh God, don't come now, because I can't cover and protect and knit, and just tidy everything around. Yeah. And I was really scared because I'm wondering who is going to really step up and take responsibility. So I feel that fear of if it doesn't get done well, it's on me.
Yes. And I think that this is the beauty of goals, guidelines, and guardrails, because it gives the clear communication. And this is why I love the guardrail part especially. Because when you give the job description, and yes, you're giving a job description to a volunteer, trust me, they love it. When you give a job description to a volunteer, they see the goal, they see these guidelines, but then they know that there are these checkpoints, that they're not just thrown out to just do this without any backup. They're actually partnering with you. And so the guardrails are these checkpoints where you're meeting with them once a week, once a month, whatever the job entails, to say, hey, I want to hear feedback. How's it going? Are you still good? Does this still fit within your time frame that you're able to give? Is there anything I can help resource you? So in those guardrail checkpoints, you're actually coming alongside them and partnering with them so they don't feel like they're out there alone. And then you can also give it away with more confidence, knowing I'm going to check in with them.
Michelle, that's so good. I think we as leaders want to delegate well. We need to delegate well, and not just the tasks, but responsibility, the job, as you said. And I think as you talk about goals, guidelines, and guardrails, that's a two-way proposition. It's I'll be there for you, I'll meet with you, I'll clarify for you, I'll resource you. But it's also, and I need you to communicate back to me. I need you to show trustworthiness. Yeah. I need you to communicate. One thing I've learned to do to get better at goals, guidelines, and guardrails, because I rely still a lot on high capacity volunteers. We're in a middle school in Riviera Beach here in South Florida, and it's all done through volunteers. And we did a mentoring program every Tuesday for a year with phenomenal volunteers. One lady was named Cindy, who's a former teacher, early retired, and she was so competent, high initiative, respectful, responsible, collaborative. And one thing that I've taught the volunteer leaders and even staff is what I call EOD, EOW, and EOM. So end of day, end of week, end of month. Can I share this with you?
Yes, please.
And I think this is helping people to what I need to see back from them. I'm trying to be clear, redundant, and resource and supportive, but I need by end of day, end of week. So this is just good communication. End of day says, if I sit with you and talk to you, that by the end of that day, you started something on that.
That's good.
Yeah. So your day is full. You've got a lot of responsibility, a lot of volunteers, a lot of things happening, but you're competent and you're listening. So when you do something toward that goal, maybe you didn't finish it. It's a big project, but you did one thing. You ordered the book, you set the meeting, you made the call. What that tells me about you is you started. You can initiate. You understood that for me, this was a priority.
Yes.
And then end of week is I did 2 or 3 things toward that goal to make progress. Michelle, my love language is progress. Now, everybody,
I know this about you.
Michelle's love language is perfection.
No, improvement. Let's not put that on me.
Her husband and I are best friends, and we're like, Michelle, it's never gonna be perfect. No, I'm teasing her. But my love language isn't perfection, because I think that's elusive.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think I have to see progress. So what you can do for me, if you want to work with me, is not just by the end of the day do something to show me I did something. By the end of the week, there were 2 or 3 or 4 steps. I had the meeting, I trained, I practiced, I made an investment. Mm-hmm. You haven't gotten to the goal yet, but you've shown that I'm gonna do productive work toward that goal. And then end of month, that's where you show results.
Yes.
That you really build trust and respect. You talked about trust and respect. Mm-hmm. When you can show results, that something's better or bigger or built because you were there. And sometimes when I meet with someone, whether it's a hallway conversation or it's a one-on-one sit down, mm-hmm. like we're doing right now, and they're not taking notes and they're just nodding their head, and then I'm wondering by the end of the week, did they hear me? Did they do anything? So I think my point of sharing that is goals, guidelines, and guardrails to me is a two-way conversation. When you raise up high-capacity volunteers, they may not always stay at that high level with you. They have to prove themselves to you, just like you're proving yourselves to them.
I love that you said that, and the fact that you're adding in those extra layers, like that's not part of what we wrote.
No.
It's just an extra, it's your interpretation of guardrails, mm-hmm. of how you're going to check in. And you're absolutely right. That two-way of trust and respect is transitional. We're both giving, we're both taking from that volunteer and ministry leader perspective. So I love that.
And I love what you said, that the goals, guidelines, guardrails, you interpret what that means for you.
Exactly.
Depending on the person you're working with, whether it's a staff person, a volunteer, mm-hmm. Someone who's younger, maybe can't handle as much pressure as someone who's older. This Cindy in Riviera, she is high level. I mean, I was in a meeting with the principal of the school and all the vice principals, mm-hmm. and we're really talking on behalf of our church. And she's just a volunteer, but I so entrusted her. And I think she so felt permission and clarity from me of what we're there. Mm-hmm. She spoke on behalf of the church and made negotiations, and I just sat there.
That's beautiful.
That was a perfect example of me giving away and delegating not just a task, but responsibility.
Yes. And I mean, we our lives are full of experiences, right? And so for me, I didn't know I was doing it, but when I was parenting, goals, guidelines, and guardrails was how I parented. And so this comes from an experience of how to give something away, how to delegate with such clarity that it doesn't come back to you. And I think that's a gap inside of some of the ministry that we've seen with pastors, like how they have a hard time bringing people alongside them because the communication is just lacking a bit. And to give more clarity using the goals, guidelines, and guardrails formula, you not only can give away a job and have a job description, but you can also write better emails. You can have better meetings. You can have better success in project management because things are communicated with more clarity.
Well, you talked about parenting. I know all your kids are wonderful. 2 girls and 2 boys. Pastoring is parenting.
Oh, Matt. Yes, you are so right.
It's not just kids. It's people need clarity, redundancy, mm-hmm. follow-up, consistency, and support. And you said it earlier in this episode, it is possible to have high-capacity volunteers take on great amounts of responsibility. And I love what you said, so it doesn't come back to you. And that's why we wrote this book. Mm-hmm. And we have exercises and processes that will help you. And not only do we write the book and have this video podcast, Michelle and I are available to talk to you. You can Facebook us or Instagram us, and we coach pastors and ministry teams all the time, and we're available to you.
Yes. We want the success of your church ministry. We want you to optimize the body of Christ by bringing alongside volunteers, and especially those high-level volunteers that fill your gaps.